Hi, I'm Johnny from UltimatePaperMache.com, and my little Chihuahua is now done. The forms are very simple, and it went together really fast. I didn't put very much detail on here. I didn't worry about sculpting in eyes or anything else, and I still think she has a lot of personality, and I really like her. So let's go ahead and see how the final painting and finishing on this little lady was done. I started out by very lightly sanding. I didn't have any really fine sandpaper, which I should have used, but I just used what I had. I didn't want to go all the way through the paper and into the foil, so I was sanding very lightly just to get off some lumps that were left by the paste. Then I gave it 2 coats of acrylic gesso and I allowed that to dry. But then when the gesso was dry, I realized that there was a lot more places where it was really not smooth enough. So I decided to go ahead and try sanding it. Sanded it for kind of a long time, and then I got really sick of that old idea and made up some of my homemade gesso instead. The homemade gesso is just some joint compound and some white glue or Elmer's glue. PVA glue in Europe it's called, and I added just a tiny bit of white acrylic paint just to make it a little bit more opaque. The homemade gesso is thicker and it's really easy to smooth it out, so I like actually using it better than the acrylic gesso. I was trying to avoid using any joint compound in this project just because so many people have a hard time finding it, but it was just so much easier. I went ahead and did it anyway. You can smooth the homemade gesso in 2 different ways. Here I waited for it to dry, and then I'm using a damp paper towel. This will knock off all of the little bumps that you might have on there. Or if you don't mind getting your fingers in it, you can go ahead and when it's still wet, get your finger just a little bit damp in some water and smooth the gesso with your finger, and it comes out very smooth. This really works out well. And now that the layer of gesso is dry, it's all ready to paint. You can see how smooth it is now. Her first coat was made out of titanium white and just a small dab of yellow oxide, and I covered the entire sculpture with this. It's the base coat that I'm going to be painting over. Some of it will show in the eventual finished piece just on her chest. And this is going to help seal the sculpture as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cover all of it. Then I added just a drop of raw sienna to the mixture I already had and painted everything except for the tummy that's going to be showing. It's so light, it's very difficult to actually see in this video. I use my finger sometimes just to make the edges really smooth instead of trying to brush it out. And then I added some burnt sienna to the same mixture and painted that on in the darker places. And you can see I'm trying to make a real gradual shift between the dark fawn color and the nice white tummy. This will go over the entire dog again, with the exception of the white spots. I painted the collar with the burnt sienna and then painted that dog collar with red and made it nice and bright. And then I found some very old bronze paint. I don't know why I bought that. I don't think I've ever used it, but I went in and used it for the little ring that holds the dog tag on. I also used just a tiny bit of the same bronze right around the edges of the collar and around the edge of the heart. It doesn't really show up all that much, but I think it makes a nice little touch. I took a pencil and drew the eyes on there. A Chihuahua has big eyes that are a long ways apart, very wide spaced, and I didn't want to be drawing those on with the paint because I knew I was going to do it wrong if I did. Once the marks were on there, I went ahead and used just plain black paint for the first layer. I didn't do anything fancy like I did in that video on how to paint a dog's eyes because these eyes are just way too small. But this actually turned out rather nice in the end. And then when that black was dry, I went ahead and put some brown burnt sienna around the edges because dogs have brown eyes rather than black eyes. It left the pupil in the middle. and just a very, very tiny rim of black around the edge. And then when the brown was all dry, I did the very last thing on this project. I put tiny little white spots of reflection on the eyes. Really brings them to life. When I was absolutely sure that all of the paint was dry, I went ahead and gave it a thin coat of varnish. This is matte acrylic varnish. One of our readers, Rex, pointed out that if you put a varnish on too thickly, it can sometimes dry with just a little bit of a milky color. Like if you put it on just a little bit too thick and it pools in one of the creases or something. I think maybe that's because it dries too quickly. It dries like a skin on top before the inner portions can get done. So you do need to put on a really thin layer, as he suggested, and it never hurts to give more than one layer of varnish. You really do need to use varnish, even though it seems like your sculpture is done when the painting is finished, but you need to put the varnish on there to make absolutely sure that your sculpture is sealed. Mold really likes paper mache because there's things for it to eat. It likes paper and it likes flour, but it can't do anything at all without water. So if you can make sure that it's absolutely dry before you paint it, and then after you paint it, make sure that you seal it with a really good acrylic varnish, then you'll have no problem at all with your sculpture being ruined by mold. A paper mache sculpture that has been properly dried and then sealed will last probably for 100 years. There are pieces in antique stores now that have been around for a very, very long time, and they still look great. So there she is, one paper mache chihuahua using paper strips and paste over a wire armature. It was really easy to do and really fun. In fact, I had so much fun with it, I think I'm actually going to make a whole bunch of them and put them in a book. 25 different breeds. I just think that would be fun, mostly because I think it'd be fun for me to have them on a shelf in my dining room. So hope you enjoyed this. If you make anything out of paper mache or anything else, please come and show it off at ultimatepapermache.com. We would love to see it. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.